Over the last few years, the global balance of power has been rapidly shifting. As the tensions between US and China grows, the terms like Thucydides Trap are now resurfacing. But this rivalry is not just about US and China anymore. It affects the countries beyond its region. Its effects are now shaping politics, security, and diplomacy of the countries in Asia and in the Middle East. I'm Ammara Zaheer, and today's episode we will discuss that how China is redefining its global role and where does Pakistan fits into all of this. We will also see that how Pakistan will navigate the treacherous water of US-China rivalry all while maintaining its strategic interest. We have today with us Muhammad Amir Rana, who is a political economy and a security expert. So let us dive right into our questions. Sir, how do you see the tensions between US and Iran unfolding amidst the Trump's visit to China?
Thank you, Mara, for having this second PIPS talks with me. And last time we had discussed all turbulence which were going on in West Asia, and we had briefly touched upon the Trump's visit to Beijing. And there was some optimism. Maybe President Xi Jinping and President Trump will talk about Iran and will reach some conclusion. And we were anticipating maybe the President Trump on his way back to White House stay in Islamabad if there would be any breakthrough between Xi Jinping and Trump on Iran. And what we have seen that the Trump is getting again very agitative towards Iran, and the proposal which had been shared, they have a lot of disagreements, and apparently seems the tensions are rising again. The Pakistani Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi was in Tehran yesterday, and he had a meeting with the President Shakil Zashkian and with the Speaker Ghalibaf, and tried to convince them that this is the prime moment, and we have to make some breakthrough in it. Otherwise, the US is losing its patience. So this is, I think, the test for Pakistan diplomacy and for mediation is trying to break between Iran and US. And specifically, it seems that the pressure is mounting on Pakistan, and maybe the Pakistan had made few over commitments, like the JD Vance had said yesterday that we had stopped Operation Freedom on the behalf of Pakistan, and because Pakistan had ensured that the Iran, this is a peace talks, mediation is the way out for this conflict. But I think this is somehow the Iran diplomacy is proving a very hard nut to break. And yesterday morning we had heard that the US cargoes were arriving in Israel. The UAE is entering in this war as well. I think this is a very serious situation is evolving again in West Asia. As far as Trump and Xi Jinping meeting, and they had discussed Iran issue as well, and we had seen that Iran, China, and US agreed that they will not allow Iran to become a nuclear power. And I think previously they had a similar kind of the agreement even during the Obama and Biden times. But the more interesting thing been recorded by Western media that the Xi Jinping agreed that they will not supply weapons to Iran. I think this could be considered one of the major achievement by Trump during his visit to Beijing, only in the context of Iran and US conflict.
Sir, how do you think that the concept of Thucydides Trap explain the rivalry between US and China? And do you think that the world is moving towards a new bipolar order?
Yes, apparently it seems that the world is already moved to a new world order. It's a bipolar world. And this was a declaration by the President Xi Jinping. Okay, we are a rising power, and we rather is we it was a declaration by President Xi Jinping that the China is a superpower now, because all the context of this proverb, uh, he had borrowed from the Western civilization, from Greek context, and from Athens and Sparta confrontation. That when the one power rise, the declining power, basically they feel threatened, and is uh, can trigger conflict and war. So many Western analysts also seen it very critically, and consider as the declaration by China that now we are the global power as well. China was, but it was not trying to project itself as a global power, and because the reason was that it already facing the multiple internal challenges, the slow economic growth, though the China did a very a great job while putting the millions, billions of people from the poverty trap. So this, but still, there is still many issues, the challenges that China need to mitigate, and he was trying to be remain low profile unless it achieved certain milestone, not only in the economic context, but as well as in the social sector context. So this was the challenge, but suddenly I think there is a big middle class has been grown in within China, and the Chinese political DNA is somehow is exposing itself, and this was the declaration. And what had happened last year? I can recall I was in Shanghai at that time when the SCO was happening, and when the Xi Jinping had declared himself the leader of the South, and South should be united for the rule-based global order, so many Chinese commentator at that time hadn't liked this comment, and between the line they had conveyed to Beijing that China is a superpower now. I think this was internal pressure also worked, which of course the forced President Xi Jinping to declare China as a formal superpower.
China wants to compete with US both technologically and economically, but is not directly seeking any military confrontation. So do you think that this kind of a behavior is sustainable where the world wants a global power to take on global responsibilities?
Yeah, China want this, and they don't want any military confrontation with the US, and even they don't want any military intervention conflict in this neighborhood, and specifically in the state of Taiwan, which is of course the red line for China, and maybe for US. This is the only triggering point. If they want to irritate China, they can trigger some tensions there. So that's why the Xi Jinping during this Trump's visit, he was very careful and declared Taiwan as the red line. So there's other areas for the competition, and the China would like to have extend. Uh, China would like to have compete with the U.S. with the rest of the emerging power, rather is the Quad or the BRICS in the domain of economy and development. But the dynamics of the international politics and the global power are very different, and this is may not be the emerging power provoke a conflict. It may be the declining power, which may prefer to trigger some conflict to cut to size the emerging power and to diffuse his growth and to test his military capabilities. And you may recall the Chinese military capabilities haven't been tested yet. And what was projected that maybe the 2027, which the President Xi Jinping had declared, that this will be the year of the modernization of the PLA, and it was conceived by the Western capitals that maybe the China will go for an adventure in Taiwan. So these were the kind of the speculation. China has no plan to annex Taiwan. It's never been declared, and China is not in hurry. And I think we need to we put this in a context. The China and Taiwan issue is not like the confrontation between India and Pakistan, which they have no formal connection, no trade, no people to people contact, and they have kind of the traditional rivalry between them. But the Taiwan and China relationship are different. Taiwanese can do business in China. There is a small faction pro-Chinese opposition in Taiwan. They have 1992 consensus, which allowed them to discuss and to do business uh, within this framework. So in that context, China is not in hurry. Uh, and if it's needed, so of course that Taiwan would be the only avenue available for China to expose and to reflect what kind of the military powers they have. But I don't see this is going to be happening in coming years or coming decade. Well, the reason that the Chinese have the strategically very patient, and 1949, usually this is in the memory of the Chinese people that this uh, was the year of the independence, and 2049 would be the year for taxation with Taiwan. And both have very interesting cases. Maybe someday we will discuss that uh, how Taiwan see China. One China policy is not only the Beijing exercise, is the Taipei also exercise one China policy in a very different context. Taipei considered the all mainland as a part of Greater China and a legitimate part of uh, uh, Taipei, and Beijing considered the same. So these are very different and interesting equations in a geopolitical context. Maybe we will do something in near future on this China and Taiwan relationship.
So, given the competition between US and China, can Pakistan maintain a striking balance between US and China as both are strategic partners of Pakistan?
Yes, this is, I think, the very good question, and Pakistan is trying to maintain balance between US and China. And to be frank, living in the neighborhood of a one superpower is would be a very different experience for Pakistan. Though Pakistan remained a very close ally of China, China had come up with the economic assistance package in form of CPAC. We have a long-term defense ties with China. But you know that the neighborhood is different. And India conceived Pakistan as a North Korea of China, which Pakistan isn't at all. And this is basically a test to have a balance within the West. I'm not specifically saying the US, balancing its relation with the West and with China. It would be challenging for Pakistan to be an ally and to be maintaining and diversifying its relationship with the West, with the US. The reason is that the Pakistan uh, increasing role in West Asia. It has increased its profile as a specialized security provider in the Middle East and even in parts of Africa. So this is the new character evolving for Pakistan, and most of its ally. And I think we had briefly talked last time about the middle power alliances, and one of the alliance which is emerging is a Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Egypt. Maybe Qatar will join this alliance. So if it happens, so these middle powers can increase their geopolitical capital. They would be in a better position to negotiate their strategic relationship, defense deal, economic deals with the rest of the world. And you know that the Chinese apprehension is that this new emerging bloc is mainly has very close relationship with the West and with the US. Turkey is already part of the NATO. Saudis have a long-standing commitments, defense deals with the US. Egypt, of course, is a very close ally of the US. Qatar already had bases, US bases there, and Pakistan is the new member in this club. So China will see that how Pakistan will negotiate its new emerging role. And of course, then we got a big conflict with India in our neighborhood, which will basically compelling us to have a very effective, functional uh, relationship with Beijing, but at the same time with the DC. The Beijing is basically the in the Pakistani context is very important partner in the context of the warfare in defense ties, and US has equal value as the mediator because in every time it was the US who had broke the deal between India and Pakistan. So in some time, you having your mediation capabilities also increase your weight, and you need to buy. China doesn't have evolved such credential that can maintain the power and dialogue both together. And this would be the Chinese test in coming decades, and Pakistan test would be to experiencing living in a new world power neighborhood.
Pakistan seems to be adopting a realist foreign policy based on diplomatic utility and strategic flexibility. So, can this policy consolidate Pakistan's role as a middle power in the region?
Yeah, this is very important to understand. The Pakistan previous foreign policy was based on the realism model, and we had mainly borrowed from the US because we were part of CETO and CENTO, and we were the part of this Western bloc during the Cold War era, and we had borrowed this all realism framework. But the US realism has is strengths, and this is because of this 13 trillion economy, and it's a defense power, it's a firepower, and most importantly that this is the center of the knowledge economy, which generating the knowledge since last 6 7 decades, which created its monopoly. So this was the framework, and Pakistan as a partner state, and we had the partnership. We still have partnership. If you see that the day before yesterday, the U.S. CENTCOM chief once again testified to Congress that Pakistan is a trusted ally in war against terrorism. So our cooperation is still going on, and we borrowed, but we had very weak economic political credentials. So this is the problem, and we face many challenges while experimenting, exercising this kind of the realism, and many time it created challenges for Pakistan. For example, in 1915, when the Saudis were anticipating Pakistan will send its troops to protect its borders against Houthis, so we had took this issue in the parliament. So it happens several times, but I think as we are uh, uh, becoming a part of the new middle power alliance, and our role as a mediator is increasing, so it's require a very different character at all. And this different character is one theory which, of course, you know well as an international relations student, is a liberal institutionalism. And what this means that you have no leverage while making your deal to keeping your interests in focus while to be catering the other party, other partners' interest as well. So this is a institutionalism or institutionalization of your partnership. So this Pakistan will need in future. So uh, and this create the trust, and without having institutionalization in our approach, and we can borrow the more from all this mediation type of the diplomacy and geopolitics, and it will enhance the Pakistan capacity to grasp and to make a little shift from realism to institutionalism's framework. Institutionalism is important, winning the trust of your allies, and this is anybody can trust whatever. It's like a friendship or the relationship between two individuals. So you uh, you can trust on your friend and during your testing times, but if he is not approaching to you, not helping you, of course you will not make a deal in future. So this applies the same in international relation, and I hope that how the Pakistan foreign policy and the geopolitical framework is evolving, Pakistan will have the capacity and will try to be accommodate and to review its realism policy and to do have to create more trust among its partners.
Last but not least, sir, please walk us to the similarities and differences between the Strait of Hormuz and Strait of Taiwan. Do you think that Strait of Taiwan be the next Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting comparison because Hormuz is already choked and it brought the global economy under stress. And this is the corridor for the energy supply and the Strait of Taiwan. This is another critical corridor for the all this electronics, the AI supply route. Even the semiconductor, Taiwan is the major producer, and all the major semiconductor producers are basically East Asian countries. So if it been choked, so it will also impact the global economy, maybe on a larger scale if any conflict happened in this region. So in Abnai Hormuz, the one actor is common in both states. This is the US. Uh, in Abnai Hormuz, he's protecting the interest of his allies, not on allies, rather only Israel, the interest in this region. While in Strait of Taiwan, it got only one partner, the Philippines, which also remain very confused which side to go. But this is the only trusted ally. Uh, of course, then the Quad members also they are in Indian Pacific, Japan, but Japan has no clear threat from Beijing so far, despite their few conflicts on the few islands. But the the US would not have a such leverage triggering conflict in Strait of Taiwan as it had in Strait of Hormuz, where a lot of conflicts were going on, and there was many non-state actors, very complex political landscape. So it's not as straight as the Strait of Taiwan is. Let's hope in the future, and of course it will depend on uh, the challenge and response both by US and China. But I think this is a very important state, and if any conflict happen there been triggered in Strait of Taiwan, it has more potential to convert into a third world war. And the Abnai Hormuz and the West Asian conflict remain very regional and very local despite impacting the global economy.
Thank you, sir, for this fruitful discussion. I learned a lot from this video. And if you did too, then like, share, and subscribe the channel. We will see you again in another video. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.